Phil Thompson. Phil was a radio operator on a B-25 during World War II in the Pacific, I believe. So we're going to talk about that. Nice to have you here today, Phil.
Thank you.
Tell me, where and when were you born?
I was born July 14, 1915, St. Louis, Missouri.
Okay.
That's where all my kinfolk are from.
Yeah. What did your dad do?
My father was in the milling business, flour milling business.
Right in St. Louis or
No,
outside of town?
Actually, he started in Los Angeles during World War I.
Was he born in L.A. in Los Angeles? Or?
No, he was born in St. Louis.
Oh, But he had, how is it that he went out there?
He had an offer to go to work for the Sperry Flour Company in Los Angeles, which now is General Mills.
Oh yeah? Sperry, it was S-P-E-R-R-Y? How long was he there in L.A.?
Oh, I'd say about 3 or 4 years.
And then he came back to St. Louis?
No, he was transferred to Portland, Oregon, as assistant manager of the milling company there.
Same company, Sperry, yeah. And how long was he there?
I'd say about 7 or 8 years. You're talking about ancient history now.
Yeah, no, ancient history is interesting. I like it. So then, did he come to St. Louis from there then, or?
No, he came from Portland. He moved to Ogden, Utah, where he was transferred as a general manager of the plant there in Ogden, at a flour mill and a feed mill. That's where I went to school, junior high school and Ogden High School.
Okay, okay. So you were born in St. Louis, and then the family moved to. Okay, all right, I got you. Yeah. Okay, let me back up just a little bit. Your father's ancestors how did they get to St. Louis? Where did they come from originally, or do you know?
My father's mother's family lived in Sedalia, Missouri. That's over by Kansas City. And my mother's family were in St. Louis, lived in St. Louis.
But you don't know
where they came from.
The old country or anything like that?
You're getting into an area that I should know but don't. I think they came from England originally.
But as far as they mostly were around Missouri for quite a long time. Okay, so you were, how old were you when you moved to Los Angeles then?
Year old.
What was your dad's first name?
Phillip. I'm Phillip Jr.
Okay. And your mom, what was her name and her maiden name?
Anna Bone.
B-O-N-E? Do you have any brothers and sisters?
No, I'm an only child.
Okay. And so how old were you when you left Los Angeles then?
I was about 8 years old.
Do you remember anything about L.A., about living there?
I can remember it was a lot different than it is now.
Oh yeah. Sure. Where did you guys live there?
We lived near Hollywood on Oxford Avenue, or Oxford Street. That's been a long time ago.
I know. Okay. And do you remember you probably went to a grade, like first or second grade there or something like that?
I went to grade school there,
school?
No.
So, okay, so from there you went to
Portland, Oregon.
Portland, right. And you were there for how many years?
I'd say about 8 or 10.
Oh, okay, so that's really where you did a lot of your growing up then. What school did you go to there?
I went to Ladd Elementary School in Portland, and oh gosh, I can't think of the. I ended up going to Washington High School, and then we moved to Ogden.
Did you play any sports in school? Did you like sports when you were a kid?
I played handball and a little of this and a little of that, never anything special.
Yeah. Okay. So then you went to, how, you were in high school when you went to Ogden then?
I was about 14 or 15 when I moved to Ogden.
And where did you go to school there?
Ogden High School and Central Junior High School.
What was Ogden like compared to Portland?
It's a lot smaller. Ogden was about 30,000 people. Portland was probably 500,000 in those days.
Yeah. Oh, Was it difficult for you to make the change, or?
A little different. You know, when you pull up stakes and leave your friends in one area and move to another one, then it's a little different. But I adjusted okay.
What did you do for recreation and stuff in Ogden?
I played football, basketball, track, and baseball in junior high school. In fact, I got an all-around medal
Oh.
from my coach, whose name was Don Barney. And then when I went to high school, I didn't get into any sports.
Did you like to hunt and fish and stuff like that?
My father was a fisherman. I used to go with him. I never really loved fishing that much, but I used to go with him because he enjoyed it.
When did you first get interested in aviation?
You're getting in a long way from where we are now. My first airplane ride was after I got in the service.
Oh, is that right? So you didn't have a particular, aviation wasn't that
No,
like some
I
of
was
these
just
guys?
assigned during the war.
Okay. Okay, well, so what year did you graduate from high school then?
1934. And I attended Colorado University until 1938.
What was your major? What were you?
Business administration.
And so did you graduate in 1938 from?
No, I didn't graduate. My mother had a very serious accident, and my father asked me to come home, which I was happy to do, and I never went back to college.
Was that a car accident?
Yes, she was injured in a car accident.
That was in Ogden?
No, it was in Evanston, Wyoming.
Oh, okay, but okay.
I was still in Ogden at the time. No, actually, when she had the accident, I was in Boulder, Colorado.
Right, but they were living in Ogden, but you mean she was
Yes.
traveling, and that's where she had the accident?
Yeah, that's right.
So, I should ask you too, during the Depression, it sounds like, did your dad work all that time, or was it hard on you guys like it
My
was on a lot
father
of
was in the
people?
milling business, and people all needed bread, so they needed flour. And my father had a good income, and the Depression didn't affect me that much. I was aware that it was affecting other people, but not me.
Yeah. So, did you go to work then after when you came back from Colorado?
Yes, I went to work for an outfit called American Packing and Provision Company as a salesman for meat products.
And that was in Ogden?
Mhm.
Now, why, I would have thought perhaps you would have joined the same company that your dad was at.
Never occurred to
Didn't
me,
even think
because
about
I
it.
used to work for him during the summer when I was younger, when my father would give me a job for, to do something during the summertime.
But this was just a job that opened up when you got
Yeah.
back and you just took
Mhm.
that.
The fellow that ran it was a good friend of mine, and he gave me a job.
Did you travel around a lot?
I called on a lot of the people in Ogden and Utah, and also in Nevada, where we had distribution.
Now, did you meet your wife around this time?
I met her when I was living in Ogden. That is an interesting story. Would you like to hear it?
I'd like to, yes I would.
I had a good friend named Garth Peck, who one Saturday said to me, "Phil, I'm going down to the Pi-Fi house in Salt Lake City to see Adele Whitlock." And Adele Whitlock was a friend of ours from Ogden who was going to university down there and was a Pi-Fi. And I said, yeah.
That was, was that you? Which university?
University of Utah.
In Salt Lake City, was it?
Yeah. So when we walked in the Pi-Fi house, I sat down at the piano. I played the piano all my life. And about 6 or 8 girls gathered at the piano, and I zeroed in on my wife like you can't believe. I almost fell off the piano stool. And I told Adele I wanted to date with her. And so she arranged a date, and that's how we got started.
And
If he hadn't have asked me to go down to Salt Lake with him, I'd have never in the world ever met her, I don't think.
What was her name then?
Ruth Orlob, O-R-L-O-B. Her father was a successful businessman in Salt Lake City.
Okay. Now, what did she have the same reaction to you that you had to her?
I think a little, but not as terrific as I had.
And what was the girl's name that you went that your friend went down to see?
Adele Whitlock. W-H-I-T-L-O-C-K. Whitlock.
A-D Adele. A-D-E-L-E. And where was Ruth from?
She was from Salt Lake. She lived right close to the university. She lived on Arlington Drive.
So, did you ask her out pretty soon?
Yeah, we had a date about 2 or 3 days later.
Let me back up. You said that you played the piano. When did you first start playing the piano and stuff?
We lived in Portland, Oregon. My mother started me with piano lessons with a Spanish teacher. Her name was can't think of it right now. I took lessons for about 8 years.
Classical kind of stuff?
Mm-hmm.
Did you like it right away when you first started?
Yeah, I liked it. And when I went to college, I had a fraternity brother that played in the band that played for all the dances and everything. And he said to me, "I got to teach you how to play by ear." So he taught me how to play by ear. And so that's what I did, and that's what I do now.
But you could read music and play too if you wanted
Yes.
to. So you can do both.
But I'd have a hard time reading music now because it's been so long.
Yeah. So, how long did you go together before you got engaged then, or when did you get engaged?
That was in 1939. We were engaged Christmas of 1941, right after Pearl Harbor.
Yeah. Well, tell me, what were you doing on December 7th, 1941?
I was in Laguna Beach where my parents lived. I was running an errand for my father. I noticed all this traffic going up and down the highway, which was not normal. And so when I got back to the house, my father said, looks like you're going to be leaving. And I said, what do you mean? He said, they just attacked Pearl Harbor. And so that was my first indication of what had happened.
Had your parents moved to Laguna, or were they just visiting?
Yes, my father retired and moved to live in Laguna Beach.
So, had you been thinking that something like this might be coming? I mean, you were pretty aware of what was going on in the world at that time?
Yes, I think everybody knew. We didn't know the extent of it. We didn't know how it would happen. Of course, we never thought that Pearl Harbor would be attacked by the Japanese, who had envoys in Washington at the time.
So, did you then what? Did you join the
I was drafted in February of 1942. Went to Shepherd Field, Texas for my basic training. Basic training was exercising and...
Now this was, you were drafted by the Army? You were drafted by the Army,
yes.
Right? Yeah. And then where did you go from there?
From Shepherd Field, I went to Scottsfield, Illinois, to radio school.
Okay. Radios, okay, this is Army Air Corps radio school? Or?
Yes.
Okay, so how did you transition from the Army to the Army Air Corps then?
I was just assigned to the Air Corps, luckily.
Yeah.
I'd have probably been a foot soldier somewhere.
And okay, I can't remember. Were you married yet at this time?
No, we were married while I was at Scott Field.
Oh, okay. All right.
I called Ruth, and I had just been best man at one of my Jewish friends' weddings, and I got awful lonesome, and called her, and she was back there in 3 days.
And so, okay, Scott Field is
It's in Belleville, Illinois, right across the river from
St. Louis.
From St. Louis.
Did you still have relatives in St. Louis?
Uh-huh. My father's brother and his wife and children, and my mother's brother. Actually, mother had two brothers in St. Louis, one that worked for the Missouri Pacific and the other worked, I think he was so smart he ended up grinding knives. He was one of these guys who couldn't get along with anybody. And my Uncle Austin.
Every family has one, I think.
Yeah, everybody's got an Uncle Austin.
So did Ruth stay with your relatives? while you were at Scott after you got married?
We had a room in the basement of a school teacher's home in Belleville. And that was where we stayed together while I was going to radio school, which was 3 months. 3 months, or 3 or 4 months, I'm not sure.
And then where did you go from Belleville then? All right, David, let's back up for a second. Tell me a little bit about what did you learn in radio school? Had you had any? Had you worked with radios? Did you like radio? I mean,
no. There were two areas in radio school. One of them was radio repair and understanding how to repair radios, which I was a complete zero. The other one was Morse code, which I was in the top of my class. I could send and receive faster than all the rest of the kids. So that's what I ended up doing for some strange reason.
Okay, so then where did you go from there then?
I went to Jefferson Barracks, and from there...
Where's that?
Jefferson Barracks is in St. Louis, and from there I went to Pittsburgh, California, where I got on a transport for Australia. I can remember the name of the transport. It was Tisadana, Tisidona, Tisadana.
And this would have been when, approximately?
23rd of September.
That's 1942. Okay. Oh, okay. So you're down there pretty early with.
There were four troop ships, and a cruiser. My mind is a blank all of a sudden because I know the name of the crew, but there was a cruiser that was shadowing us.
Yeah.
And it took us 3 weeks to get to Brisbane. I got on the ship without any money, and there were poker games going all over the place, and I love to play poker, and I never got into one.
Yeah. So when you got to Brisbane, what was there? Where did you go to?
It was a staging area.
And where did you go from there?
They put us on a train, a little dinky train, for Townsville, Australia, which is in the north part of Australia. You know where that is?
Near Darwin, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it's Darwin was a little east or west.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And I was there. I'm glad my mother made these notes because I probably couldn't remember. I left November 1st for Townsville, and I stayed there until December 23rd. I guess I was on a ship during Christmas then because I arrived in Port Moresby.
New Guinea?
Yeah, on the 27th, New Guinea.
What was Fort Moresby like? I know they had PT boats out of there and stuff like that. Do you remember much about it?
Hot and wet. I was there for 3 or 4 months, I guess.
What were you doing there during that 3 to 4 months period of time?
I really can't remember.
But I guess was there an airstrip? Did you have planes flying in?
There were 3. Oh, wait a minute, I'll get to that later.
Oh,
There was an
okay.
airstrip in Port Moresby, but
Right.
they took 5 of us out of our group and sent us to a place called Dobadura. D-O-B-A-D-U-R-A, Dobadura, New Guinea, which is over the Owen Stanley Range on the other side. That was my first airplane ride in my life. Strapped on either side of the airplane were 55-gallon drums of aviation gasoline, and when you got about halfway up the Owen Stanleys, it socked in solid, so you couldn't even see the wings. And actually it was kind of scary. Of course, war is scary.
Yeah.
But
go ahead. Did you go over Japanese held territory on that flight?
no,
or you didn't?
no.
Okay.
When we landed on the strip in Dobadura, we blew a tire, and as we got out of the plane, I looked up and said, "Oh, look at the B-25s." Actually, they were Betty bombers, Japanese Betty bombers, and they were bombing us. That was my introduction to Dobadura, New Guinea. Dobadura had 3 airstrips. They had 1 for fighters and 2 for heavy bombers and light bombers.
1 fighter strip and 2 bomber strips.
Yeah.
What kind of plane was that you were in when you went over the Owen Stanley?
It was a C-47, a workhorse of the Air Force.
So how long were you at Dobadura then?
Till March the 13th.
Yeah, 1943.
My mother's got it in 1944, but that isn't right. 1942, yeah. I later joined the 345th Bomb Group, which was...
Let me just back up for a second. Did you get, were you bombed quite often while you were there? Did Japanese come over?
Yeah. I remember being bombed. We used to have a signal. They'd have 3 shots somewhere to indicate that they were coming in, the enemy was coming in, and then when it was over, they would have 1 shot, which meant it was all clear.
Did you have foxholes or something like that you would get into?
Pardon me?
Did you have foxholes or something that...
Yeah, I've got an interesting story about that. We had a fella named, he was from down south, Edwin Levette. And the minute they would indicate that there were planes coming in, he would get in the foxhole. And usually it was about 5 or 10 minutes before they'd hit us. And I said to him, "Ed, how come you get in the foxhole so soon?" And Ed said, "Well," he said, "I got it all figured out. If I get killed, the war's lost." And I thought that was about one of the smartest remarks I ever heard. If I get killed, the war's lost. He was from down in Alabama somewhere.
Yeah. Okay, so you said you joined which one? What? At this point in time, what are you attached to?
I'm kind of a 308th Bomb Wing, I guess it was, which was a administrative organization that did a lot of paperwork for all of the bomber and fighter pilots.
But then you joined
345th Bomb Group as a radio operator.
Okay. And did they have mainly B-25s?
Yes, they're all B-25s.
And where where was that?
That was
Same
in
place,
Mildura.
same place then. And so then you started flying some missions. How many did you fly in all during college?
Flight about 15. And I got an ear infection, and they grounded me, and I had to get some treatment for it, and then I ended up in an air-to-ground communication unit, which was, at that time, moved from Dobadura to...
You were in, what would you say it was, air-to-ground?
Air-to-ground communication unit. There were about 10 areas in the Pacific that were in this net. It was a net that we could contact each other by code usually. There wasn't any voice, and we did it with Morse code. And our unit was TP6. Da 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 dit da 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 dit. That's the code for it. We moved from Dobadura.
Well, wait a minute. Let me back up a little bit more.
Where are we?
Well, you had just, but I want to go back to your 15 missions that you flew. Those 15 missions. Was that all in the New Guinea area, or where did you
Well,
fly?
we flew over the area. We flew over Rabaul once.
Did you? Okay.
And that was a heavily fortified area for the Japs. It was their naval base,
Right.
that area. And we lost probably as many planes getting lost after they left their base. The weather would sock in so definitely so that you really lost your bearings, and we almost had cracked up a couple of times, but we got back. So when you take off with a full bomb load, and those engines are pretty noisy and pretty powerful, you wonder if you're going to get off the ground.
Right.
And so it was interesting.
Yeah. Let's focus in on that. I want to take a look at that B-25 and have you tell me a little bit about it. Okay. There's a. I want to point to the area that the radio operator would be. Where you were. Yeah, you can go ahead.
Where the radio operator would be?
Yeah.
Well, he would be behind this engine somewhere.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
The pilot and co-pilot are there, and the navigator was behind them, and then the radio operator, and the bombardier.
Yeah, and yeah, a couple of ways.
There wasn't a lot of room in that plane.
Here it was really noisy. I've talked to B-25 pilots.
Very noisy, but it was a good plane. And at one time, they mounted a cannon on one of these things. Not in one that I was on. I don't know what size it was, or whether it was a 155 or a 205 or whatever it was, and so that they could shoot a cannon or whatever they were after.
Oh, yes, right. I've heard about that.
Yeah.
And they would sometimes go after ships and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, good. So, tell me a little bit about going over Rabaul. Do you remember much about that when you went over it?
I remember how scared I was.
A lot of anti-aircraft?
Yeah, a lot of anti-aircraft stuff. And,
did you have fighter escorts?
Yes, we had P-51s, I think. And this is all been so long ago that it's a little fuzzy. You'll have to realize that. As a matter of fact, I'm kind of fuzzy.
No, I think
so we dropped some bombs, and and what we called hauled ass.
Did you ever see any Jap fighters around?
Yeah, there were a few,
Uh-huh.
but luckily they didn't get to us. We did pretty well with the area.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, we were looking mostly for Japanese ships. That's a big
Right.
sea out there. We flew over Borneo and Sumatra and Celebes. In fact, one day when I wasn't doing anything, I noticed a B-24 that was getting ready to take off, and I hollered at the crew chief, and I said, "Where are you going?" He said, "We're going out on reconnaissance." I said, "I haven't got anything to do for another 24 hours. How about a ride?" He said, "Fine, climb in." And they were out for about 8 or 10 hours on reconnaissance looking for Japanese traffic. And that's when I really noticed how big that ocean is. Really a big ocean.
Did you guys ever bomb any Japanese ships when you were on any of your raids?
Not to my knowledge, we didn't. We dropped some on some of the areas where the Japanese were supposed to be, but we never knew whether we'd done any good or not.
Yeah. Okay, back to now your, did you leave Doberdur to go?
I went to Finchhaven.
Okay.
Finchhaven, New Guinea.
Uh-huh.
That's east or west of Doberdur.
Uh-huh. And you're still in that ground unit,
Now
right?
I'm in a ground communication unit now.
Uh-huh. And how long were you there?
It says here, stayed there until May the 7th. From March 13th till May the 7th.
Yeah. Do you, was that, did you have any Japanese attacks while you were there? Any bombing?
We had some bombings,
Some
but
bombing,
nothing
some bombing,
serious.
yeah. Uh-huh. And where did you go from there then?
Went to Hollandia, right there on May the 12th.
Hollandia is that in New Guinea also?
That's in Dutch New Guinea.
Still with the same outfit, right? Still with the same unit.
Actually, we were staging for our next move,
Which was?
which was for the island of Biak, B-I-A-K. We got to Biak on the 30th of May, and I was in a Navy unit, and they discharged us and took off. We didn't have any water. And in the tropics, you know, you got all that ocean, but you don't drink it.
Right.
You know what we found? We found a great big cache of Japanese beer. And it was strong. And I wasn't much of a drinker, but you know, when it comes to finding something to satisfy your thirst, you take almost anything.
Yeah.
So it was about 24 to 36 hours we didn't have any water. And so we drank that Japanese beer, and then we didn't care for a while what happened to the war. Let's see, that's on Biak.
Yeah.
Stayed there until June 21st. On June the 20th, 1944, we were on the island of Biak, and we received a communication that they had gone in to Europe, the invasion of Europe. And everybody was so excited and everything, and I said to one of the fellows next to me, I said, as far as I'm concerned, the war's right here. And we got word the Japanese Navy was on their way. And I had a carbine against their 18-inch guns, but they turned and went somewhere else. So I can remember one thing about Bayak. Bayak was a solid, thinking of solid stone. What is it that grows in the water?
Oh, coral?
Coral, solid coral. I tried to dig in that coral for a foxhole, and I could not dig in it. I finally ended up with some Japanese rice, sacks of rice that I moved around and put it in there. That seemed to take care of the thing. But the rice made quite as much as I did. Okay, now where are we?
Let's see. No, June 21st, you're still on, I think you're getting ready to leave Bayak.
We went back to Hollandia. Stayed there until the 15th of October. And we left for Leyte on October the 24th, Leyte in the Philippines.
Had MacArthur gone back into the Philippines by that time, then?
We landed about a week after the invasion. Actually, there wasn't much of an invasion until they got in a ways. Much shooting. And MacArthur had been there. And when I got into that harbor, I never saw so many ships in my life. All kinds of different ships. And the whole area where they landed was loaded with all kinds of munitions and food and clothing and whatever else. The Japs tried to bomb us a couple of times but missed, so that was a good thing. I left for Leyte on October 24th, and I stayed in Leyte until December the 31st, 1944. And I left for Luzon in the Philippines. Arrived there on January the 11th, 1945. We were bombed while we were in Luzon, I know that, by the Japs. But most of the fighting was in Manila, and not in Lingayen Gulf, is where we landed. Are you acquainted with any of these areas?
Oh yeah. Well, I haven't been to them, but I mean I've heard all of them. I mean every one that you've said I'm familiar with. At least.
We rented an interesting story about being in Luzon. We rented a weapons carrier, and I was put in charge to drive 3 or 4 of the guys into Manila. And Manila was a mess. It was all destroyed. There were a couple of buildings standing, and so anyway, we found one that they had set aside for people like soldiers like us. The next morning we woke up, the wheels are all gone from the weapons carrier. During the night they'd stolen all the wheels. But we got a hold of the Army, and they said, oh yeah, we know what's going on, we'll get your wheels back. And so they did, and we drove back to Luzon.
Oh, in Manila is where you lost your name.
Yeah, Manila. There was still some fighting going on in that area too. It was ugly. Let's see, I'm there until Luzon. January 11th, stayed until June the 10th in 1945. And then went to Okinawa.
That was Okinawa in June 45, did you say?
June 10th, 1945.
What was that like? What was Okinawa like when you got there?
Actually, they were getting ready to invade Japan. and wasn't too bad. I can't remember. Okinawa was a kind of a green, warm place to stay, and we every once in a while they would have springs where people could drink or water or wash or everything. A bunch of us were taking a bath there one time. A bunch of Okinawan women came up, took off their clothes and started taking their baths right with us. And of course, you know, we'd been away from women for a long time, and there were things that went like this. But I was in the hospital in Okinawa. I had yellow jaundice when the war ended. Oh, I could backtrack. When I was on IAC, when they dropped the first atomic bomb, I can remember we had a communication unit with us, and I remember they talked about dropping the first atomic bomb in Japan.
I wanted to ask you about, obviously, I suppose you, well, I don't know, were you on a troop ship? No, you probably flew, I suppose, from Luzon to Okinawa and stuff like that. Okay.
Yeah.
They would be like on C-47s, or did you take your...
C-47s. Our unit was not that big, but we were good at what we did. Our communication.
Tell me a little bit more about that. What?
Well, we had communication with the reconnaissance units that were out in the Pacific, and we had communications with the units that were bombing, attack units. And every once in a while a plane would get lost, like I mentioned to you before. And we had a way of finding them, and I can't remember exactly how we did it. It was 2 stations and then a station in the middle, and that would pinpoint where they were and help them get back. And we saved quite a few flights that way to get them back safely to their units.
Those were like radio signals, or?
Yeah. We would get distress signals from the planes that were lost, and some of them had been shot up.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that was important. So, so the war ended then shortly after the second bomb was.
I was in a hospital bed when the war ended, and everybody that had a shooting piece was shooting it off, and we had bullets going through this place. And I thought, good grief, I've been over here 3 years, and I'm going to get killed in the hospital. Until the commanding officer issued a command that said, do not shoot any firing pieces. So it stopped. So I left for Manila on August 21st on the Lurleen. Oh, I could mention that flying from Okinawa to the Philippines, we went through the tail end of a typhoon. Oh boy, those are something. And when we got to Luzon, I said to the pilot, how you doing? He said, I've got 10 minutes gasoline left. He said, we really had a tough time. I said, I know, that was a rough flight. And then I left Manila on August the 21st on the Monterey. It was a Monterey, not the... and arrived in the USA on September 21st. Gosh, I can remember coming up through San Francisco, through the area there before you get to San Francisco, standing at the side of the ship, and the tears just streaming down my face. And the thing that most impressed me was the colors that I saw with the women as we pulled into the dock. I saw the colors of all of the clothes that the women were wearing, the reds and the blues and the yellows and the greens that were so vivid to me. And so they took us to the staging area and fed us a great big steak dinner. Oh, I can remember that because we never had food like that overseas. There's a lot of things that I think of from time to time that my wife tells me I should be telling you, but something reminds me of them for some reason or other, and I don't know of any of them right now.
Okay. All right. Well, that's fine. So you were in San Francisco there. Were you?
Pittsburgh, California, which is contiguous to San Francisco.
Right. And when did you get to see your wife for the first time after you came back then?
Boy, that was something. I arrived in Laguna Beach on September the 26th, 1945. I met my wife and my 2.5-year-old son, whom I had never met. He's now 57 years old. And he is Phillip M. Thompson III. We stayed in Laguna for about 6 weeks at a friend's home they lived in L.A. and they let us take their place for 6 weeks. Went to the beach every day and had a lunch and got sunburned.
Oh, that was good. Now, were you still in the service then, or were you?
I was discharged. I was discharged from camp in Sacramento. And the name of the camp I can't think of right now. I think they gave us $300 or $400 in cash as money for a discharge. So I did have a little money in my pocket when I got home.
Yeah.
My parents lived in Laguna too.
Right. Yeah. Now, where had your wife been living all the time you were overseas?
She lived in Salt Lake with her parents. And my son grew up with his grandfather, and to him I was a picture. And he couldn't figure out who I was when I came home. Kept saying, "That's your daddy?" He said, "No, the picture's my daddy." Well, that was a wonderful reunion, I'll tell you.
Oh, man.
I'll tell you, the moon in the tropics is about 3 times the size it is anywhere else.
Good.
It is so big, the full moon.
Yeah.
And I can remember batting mosquitoes and looking at the moon, thinking of my wife. We've been
Now,
married.
when did you find out that you were going to be having a child? Before you went overseas, or?
Oh no, I think I told you that. I had been overseas about 2 months, and my mother-in-law wrote me a V-mail and told me that my wife was pregnant, but she was well. Our doctor, the family doctor, said there's nothing wrong with her, she's pregnant. She didn't know it.
Yeah.
So she was quite happy about that, and so was my father-in-law, because he had three daughters and no sons.
So how many children did you have altogether?
3.
And boys, girls, or what
All
was the other?
boys.
All boys. What were the other boys' names?
Phillip M. Thompson the third. The second one's name is Rudy Young Thompson. And the third one is Terrell Evans Thompson. You met my wife's sister.
Yes.
Her husband's name was Sirs Evans. We gave him, our third boy, his middle name, Terrell Evans Thompson.
T-E-R...
T-E-R-R-E-L-L. He's married and has 7 children.
Wow.
Lives in Auburn, California.
My goodness.
We just bought a 3-piece big unit. They moved into a 5-acre plot in Auburn with a home that was half built, and so they're building onto the home. And we just bought a great big deal and we're sending it to them. Just bought it just before I came down here.
So how many grandchildren do you have then?
Got 11. I've got 7 girls and 4 boys. One of my grandchildren is in the Army. He's in the I can't think of the division right now.
Yeah.
And I've got 2 granddaughters that are married, and one I think that's going to be married. And then I've got 3 granddaughters and 2 grandsons that aren't married.
Okay, I want to back up now. Okay, you're in Laguna, and so where did you settle then? And where did you go back to your old job or what?
My wife's father offered me a job in his company, which was called Industrial Supply Company in Salt Lake City.
As a salesman there too?
Actually as a trainee, because I didn't know anything about the business.
Uh-huh. What did they supply? What kind of stuff? Metal or?
We sold tools and all kinds of supplies for industry. And my son is now chairman of the company. I retired as chairman about 15 years ago. So I worked up from flunky to chairman, and now I'm back to dishwasher.
And this was in Ogden? In Ogden?
No, Salt Lake.
Oh, in Salt Lake.
Yeah, Salt Lake City.
And when did you retire then?
Fully retired. I'm still in charge of the retirement fund for our company. I retired, I guess, about 15 years ago. I was chairman of the board, and my wife and her 2 sisters are the major stockholders of our business.
How many employees do you have now?
About 125.
All in Salt Lake City, you don't?
No, we have branches in Las Vegas, in Ogden, in Rock Springs, Wyoming. There's one more somewhere, I can't think of it. There's 4 branches, but the headquarters is in Salt Lake.
So you come out here to Palm Springs in the wintertime and go back there?
My wife has 2 physical problems of which there is no cure. One is called Raynaud's syndrome. Don't ask me how to spell Raynaud's because I don't know. It's French. And the other one is called scleroderma.
Oh, yeah.
You
I've
acquainted
heard
with
of
scleroderma?
scleroderma, yeah.
Yeah, Ruth has scleroderma. Her fingers are going this way. Actually, it hasn't affected her like a lot of people. A lot of their hands are like
yeah,
this.
I didn't notice anything when I.
Yeah. Well, she takes good care of herself.
Yeah. When did you start coming to the Palm Springs, and why did you? Oh, did you come here because of it's better?
Get her away from the cold winter. So that's the reason, and we have the means, luckily, the financial means to handle it. We have 2 condos here. One of them that my sister-in-law uses when she's here, and my son comes down when she goes with one of my grandsons, and they stay for a little while. And so then we go home about May. And there you know the history of my life.
Well, it's great. Phil, thank you so very much.
So what are you going to do with all this?
Well, what I'm going to do is, let me turn
Check
this
the
baby
local
off.
police and see if
Yeah.